toasted bread.
Sing with me, dance with me, tell me your story, my child. And nothing you say could ever seem too crazy, too weird, or too wild. 'Cause the nectar of this world is sweet, still it hardly compares to the champagne of love that is found in an infinite world. Sweet soul music, you gotta breathe into it. You're not leaving now. So just stay, and whatever you do, always to yourself be true and shine. Just shine with your indigo light. So sing with me, dance with me, paint me a picture, my child. And just use all the colors of life to show me the shape of your heart and your mind. Don't let the darkened ones lure you away from the love. Just stand in the violet flame, let it pour down from above. And listen to that sweet soul music, you gotta breathe into it. You're not leaving now. You gotta stay, and whatever you do, always to yourself be true and shine. Yes, shine with your indigo light. Yes, shine, 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 shine with your indigo light. Dry up your eyes, love the golden dawn shines all around. Magenta and gold will soon pour from the well that at last you have found. You're so young and beautiful, vibrant in all that you do. So just drink in your indigo rays and your indigo blue, and listen for that sweet soul music. Just breathe into it. You're not leaving now. So just stay, and whatever you do, always to yourself be true and shine. Just shine with your indigo light. All you gotta do is shine. Just shine with your indigo light. 'Cause that's all you got to do. It's all that's
Good morning. Good morning, Sister Belinda.
Good
morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is Fatima around?
Yeah.
Okay, so this morning we're going to explore a power that most people feel they don't have, because it sounds like a power that you need to just bear and accept. And actually, I think it's a very misunderstood power. It's called the power to tolerate. So in doing that, yeah, let's see, sisters, what do you say? What do you think about when you hear tolerance? What comes to your mind? Hello, sisters, are you all there?
Yes, I'm sorry.
So tolerance, what does it bring up?
I'm struggling with this technology.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So somebody is saying patience. Yes. Please, if anybody wants to just put in the chat, it would be wonderful to hear from you guys too. So when you hear the word tolerance, what comes through your mind?
What comes to my mind is understanding,
Mm-hmm.
acceptance, what is it? Understanding, acceptance. There's also love involved in it.
Yes. Somebody saying calm.
I think
Somebody
we should
saying
be able to
cooperation.
accommodate.
Mm-hmm.
That's what comes to my mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know
Sister Usha, can you hear me?
I can, sister.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I know that the way I see it now is very different, but I think that I used to associate it with kind of gritting your teeth and putting up with things. And so you're right. I mean, it didn't have a particularly appealing feel to it. But, you know, with the spiritual understanding, it's very, very different, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry, Sister Fatima, go ahead.
So somebody is saying in the chat, putting up what is intolerable, compromise, forgiveness. These are some of the other words coming up from the group. Fatima, you want to go for it? Are you okay there?
I'm okay. Here now, I'm back. Yes.
Okay.
Did you hear my suggestions in the beginning?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So now, you know, images are always so useful, and I know the image we often use for the power of tolerance is a fruit tree that is heavily laden with fruit, and there's a boy standing underneath the fruit tree and throwing stones to try and get the fruit down. And it's a very powerful image, because the nature of the fruit tree is to give of its fruit, to give of itself. And the fruit tree doesn't change that nature because someone is throwing stones. And if we think of our own lives, how often does someone throw a stone, using that word metaphorically? And the first thing we do is to withdraw, you know, withdraw our gifts or our energy and and love. And so this fruit tree is such a beautiful example for us that can we be in this world, withstand all the stones that come our way, and be absolutely true to our natural nature of kindness, generosity, peace, love. Yeah.
So I'm just responding to some of the things that are in the chat as well. But what I also like to share is that, when there's a nice image that says that when you squeeze an orange, what do you get? You get orange juice. And so tolerance really is that opportunity for me to allow that which is really me to emerge. And it's nice for us to know that in life, when challenges are like kind of coming through, I can really best step up and, in a sense, expose that which is inside of me. Because otherwise, you don't actually get to know what you're really made of. And so, if you look at a mother, for example, and why that image of gritting your teeth and just bearing it comes in, it's because it looks like, there's, I think some of you might remember in the early days, there used to be an ad for Vicks, the cough mixture. And everybody in the house is coughing. And then the mother will wake up. She's also coughing, but she'll get up and then she'll give everyone something to drink. And then she'll drink herself and then she'll go to sleep. And I'm thinking it's so amazing that a mother with that ability to know that she herself is not feeling good and not well, but has still a powerful vision of what can heal and which can support, that she can go against her own sort of moment of vulnerability and step up to the point where she can still serve. That just then really is the definition of what a mother's care and compassion is. And so I think that if we're not really stable in our own strength, then when we compromise, then we'll feel that people beat us up and hit us and hurt us and defamed us or disserviced us. But actually, you just have to look at it and think about the harder you squeeze that orange, the more juice you get out. There's more for others to enjoy. But it really then proves that you were a good orange, which actually was full of good juice. And I think that's something that if we have this attitude that this life of ours is not for self-consumption. And there's a beautiful song that goes, the river does not drink of its own nectar, and the tree doesn't eat of its own fruit. And with that kind of attitude, tolerance becomes an expression of myself rather than a feeling of being used and abused.
I like the points that you've just made, because the quality of understanding comes into it. Because when you understand where the other person is coming from and you understand where you are at yourself, that is the first step towards tolerance. Because once you understand the other person and you understand where you are at yourself, the next step is, of course, to accept the situation, accept what the other person is going through as much as what you are going through. And once that acceptance happens, then accommodating becomes possible. And when you can accommodate, you are bringing yourself and the other person together. In fact, when I was thinking about all of these components that make up tolerance, I felt that it's a very beautiful power to use not just when you're with yourself, but when you're with others in that sense. It's made to allow us to be with others, to work with others, and to cooperate, because you're using those steps of understanding first, accepting, and of course, having the ability to accommodate not just the situation, but the other person too.
Mm.
Sorry, I have a barking dog. I don't know if you can hear in the background.
He wants to have his say also.
Are you wanting to say something? It's okay if the dog's barking. I think it's okay.
Yeah, I liked your example, Sister Usha, of the mother, and it's just quite challenging when we do face, I referred to stones, but maybe people are hurtful, unkind, different things happen. And it really is at that moment that we can make the choice either to go to the same level and react from our lower self, or in that moment to be true to who we are. Because when we react from the ego perspective, actually we are not being true to ourselves. And when we're able to just stay in that place of truth and remember that I am peace, I am love, I am joy. That is who I am. And nothing and no situation is going to shift me away from my truth. But the challenge is that the ego self wants to, if someone is hurtful, we just want to cut them off or be hurtful back again. And the power of tolerance gives us the ability to make the right choice in that moment. Thank you.
If we look at tolerance with a different kind of purpose, if I put it that way, when you keep using the word ego, and I think everybody sort of has an understanding of when we say ego, it's the more part of me that wants to be known, to recognize. But when you define ego as actually somebody who has got the wrong identity, who's actually forgotten who they are. And so when we look at somebody with ego, we think, well, they think they're high and mighty, they think they're always right. But actually, what is behind this thing that they're trying to prove themselves to be right is actually somebody who's very afraid. So ego stems from actually not knowing myself. So I'm actually afraid all the time. And so it's so beautiful to know is not to make ego actually an enemy, but to make ego like a thermometer. When I see the temperature high, then I know actually that there's some infection inside. So whenever the ego rises, it's an indication that I've forgotten my real self. And so to be actually so gentle with the self, to say, don't worry, that's not really who you are. That's okay. And you're safe. Because, when you look at the ego, when somebody doesn't know who they are, they raise the bars so that they make themselves very elevated, so that they push everybody else away from themselves or far below. Ego is just trying to protect itself because it's so frightened. And I feel it's very nice that I can easily feel the power of tolerance being natural not even a sense that I'm going to have to endure or I'm putting up with, but because I feel I know I can do it. I know this is me. I actually give myself a chance to say, go for it, do it. And that's such a nice way of being encouraging to the self. Because I'm finding for myself that, whenever something goes wrong, in terms of maybe somebody complains or criticizes you or whatever it is, it's easy to think, well, I didn't, or whatever it is. But to say to yourself, okay, so if that's the case, so well, that's what it is. And I need to examine inside, do I know what my purpose is, what my intention is? Because, somebody might be in a moment feeling vulnerable, and their reaction can be so strong, and it can be that you're the cause of their problem. But the point is, actually, we're all in different states. We're all looking through the windows of our own experiences. And if I constantly judge my behavior based on other people, I'm going to be nothing, actually. And so that's why a mother doesn't think about, why doesn't anybody care for me? Why doesn't anybody do anything? She has accepted her role to be the mother. And at any given moment, she's going to be the one that will initiate the cooking or initiate the serving. But if she goes and says, I had enough, you guys, y'all better also pull your socks up, then actually the mother's role changes and the child then becomes the mother. And I know that we must all share responsibilities, but I'm just giving this example that when somebody actually has that deep feeling inside of them that they can do it, like, for example, when you look at the role of the father, when there's really a 50-kilo package that has to pick up, he doesn't look at the mother and say, it's your turn now, you pick up the 50 kgs. He knows he's strong, so he goes ahead and he picks it up. And sorry to use genders, but I'm just going to use it for the purpose of defining the fact that physically, if somebody is stronger built, but if a mother was a weightlifter, then she could also pick it up. It's okay. It's about knowing your strength and actually stepping up into it instead of thinking, why me? Why me? Why not me? It's for me to exercise the qualities that I have and be the best that I'm supposed to be.
Sister Usha, that was very powerful. When you talk about ego is a weapon that we use for self-defense when we don't know who we are. We defend ourselves immediately when we feel that somebody else is attacking us. And that's the role that ego plays, really, to defend ourselves. But when you understand yourself clearly, spiritually, then you become very open-minded, as you were saying, that you will look at your part in what happened. And if there's anything wrong that you did, you'll be able to accept your part. And so create or pacify the situation, make peace in that situation in that manner way. When you're able to accept your part in it, I think the other person will also be able to accept their part in it. And I see that as being open-minded, using that power of being open-minded. You couldn't have said it better.
There's somebody in the chat saying, is it possible to have tolerance for oneself?
Of course.
It starts with the self.
It's very possible. Because once you understand your spiritual identity of being a soul and your eternal, your inner powers, the true powers in you, peace, love, happiness, and all of them, you have understood the truth. And if you're truthful, you will be able to look at yourself without feeling any fear, whatsoever. Because what you want to do is to transform yourself. And once you are able to do that, then the fear goes away and you're able to have tolerance for yourself. What do you say, Sister Belinda?
Yes. It's interesting because when we come into fear, it is always coming from that place of insecurity. And of course, it's only the ego that is insecure. The real self, the true self, is never insecure, always secure. And so, really to understand that when there are those feelings of fear and anxiety and worry, that at that moment, just to remind the self, we do need these reminders. It's not that we just say, I'm an elevated being and that is the end of it. We really have to come into that experience and remind ourselves and even just check, am I coming from that lower self, which is not true? Or can I step up in that moment? And actually, I think, as Sister Usha said, the power of tolerance starts with the self. If we don't have the power of tolerance for the self, then there's no ways that actually we can have it for others. So people often say, if you're hard on other people, it's a sign that you're actually hard on yourself. And the power of tolerance is an incredibly loving energy because it's coming from what is real. Whereas if it's coming from that ego self, then it is always, even the love is conditional. Peace is always temporary for that lower self because of that underlying insecurity. And it always comes from the fear of loss. And it can even be, loss of our dignity, loss of our credibility. And so just to check the self, especially in those moments when we are challenged, that we always have an option to come into the higher self, the true self, or stay with the fear and insecurity, which will always bring some kind of reaction, even against our wish.
Over to you, Sister Fatima. Are you going to take us into meditation? In fact, just as you start the meditation, the one last question was ego as self-defense or self-respect as defense. And it's self-respect that will help me protect the true identity of myself. So I would rather say, instead of having ego, let me develop self-respect.
Yes. I agree with you fully. Okay. Thank you, Sister Usha. Thank you, Sister Belinda. As we sit back and think about everything that has been shared about the power of tolerance, I know that tolerance has been a challenging power to us before we came to understand ourselves and who we are. there was always this fear that if you are tolerant, you are open game. And that is not the right understanding of the power of tolerance. Tolerance comes very easily when you love, when there is love. Love allows you to accommodate. It allows you to accept. But it's not only love. The qualities of understanding oneself and the qualities of understanding others are the steps that one takes towards being tolerant. When I understand my part and I understand where the other person is coming from, my journey towards tolerance begins. Because whatever obstacles may have come between us, at that point of understanding, at that point when I understand, the door opens my heart to accepting. And once I accept because I trust. Now that I have understanding, I can trust, I can accept. The power of tolerance also brings with it the power to accommodate, to understand others and bring them close, to understand differences, that we are all different. No two people are created the same. And so the ability to accommodate others brings about cooperation. And all these steps will finally lead to the power of love, where everyone feels free, everyone feels accepted, and everyone feels loved. And so today, as we leave, let us remember all the jewels that have been shared this morning, the jewels of understanding, of accepting, of accommodating, and not forgetting the love. Let's spread all of those qualities out into the atmosphere and bring all other souls who we come into contact with closer. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Fatima. So today our power to tolerate with the understanding of who I truly am. I have the capacity to be true to my intrinsic purpose. I am not challenged by people or situations. Instead, I experience them as opportunities to step into my own power. I am patient, I am loving, I am mature, I am benevolent. And so really the only way to make this quality, actually it's a power, but I need to affirm my own intrinsic value and emerge it. So the more I touch my inner core as often as possible, then that's going to be strengthened. They say whatever you give attention to, that's where life grows. So if my attention is always on other people and outside, they're going to be more powerful than me. But if I focus my attention on my intrinsic values, I'm going to grow them, and that's going to give me strength. So thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a lovely day. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Thank you, Sister Usha. Thank you, Sister Belinda. And thank you, everyone out there.
Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, sisters. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sisters, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Stay well.
Thank you, sister, for the beautiful, enlightening session and a beautiful meditation. Thank you.